Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today I am going to talk about pedagogical stylistics. Since we have covered formal properties of language, that how stylistics came into being, and they were supposed to look at the formal properties of language in the beginning. Later on, we have discussed reader response theory, that what is the role of the reader in responding to the text, in responding to the words on the page, in responding to the ideas which are there, which have been created by the author on a piece of paper. We have also talked about affective stylistics, that how it can affect our feelings and emotions. And then, of course, the reader is going to respond. In our last class, we have talked about pragmatic stylistics, where we have read that how pragmatics plays its role in stylistics and how we can analyze the language if we have complete understanding of the concepts which are discussed in pragmatics. Now, our new topic is pedagogical stylistics. Pedagogical is a word which means that it has got something related to teaching and learning process. So pedagogical is from teaching. Pedagogue is a teacher. So pedagogical stylistics, it means that how the teacher is going to manipulate the kind of language which is there in literature, how you are going to create different kinds of activities for the students so that they should be able to understand the kind of language which is produced by the authors. Since literature is produced through language, language is a means, okay, which is used by the authors to produce literature. It is very important that we can teach our students literature through language. We can teach them literature in our teaching in our teaching classes, or when our goal is to teach them language, the kind of words which the author has manipulated in the form of phrases, sentences, and clauses. So you can teach them that look how the author has exploited these forms of words or lexical items in the text. First of all, we should remember that when the teacher is going to teach, teacher has got certain goals. The teacher is well aware of what he is going to teach, what is the agenda of the day. Accordingly, the teacher is supposed to create, produce, make certain activities for the students. Once the teacher has designed these activities, he is teaching literature, for example, poems, drama, novel, or the dialogues which are there in the novel, or prose. He can make use of those activities in the classroom. So we can teach grammar to our students. We can teach the use of connectives to our students. We can talk about cohesion and coherence to our students. We can talk about different vocabulary or lexical items, that how the author is making use of different lexical items in the text. We can talk about meaning, semantics, because words which the author has made use of, they have got meaning. We can talk about social aspect of meaning, we can talk about associative aspect of meaning, we can talk about denotative aspect of meaning, we can talk about connotative aspect of meaning, we can even talk about the phrasal verbs or idioms which the author has used in literature. We can also talk about different literary devices or linguistic devices that the author has used in literature. So, a stylistic approach teaches students how to look for and interpret stylistic dimensions of a text, because text is produced in language. Students are made to learn how what is said and how meanings are made. They are taught to know what makes the language of literature different from everyday language, if it really is. Because there is a debate. There are people, they say that literary language is different from day to day language. But at the same time, there are people, they say this is not the case. But it is another debate, because in our day to day life, of course, we make use of literary devices which are there in literary text. So, pragmatically, we are making use of language. Now, I believe that you are well aware of how pragmatics plays its part in literature, how pragmatics plays its part in text or talk. And once you know these concepts, you are able to analyze the text in a better way. The environment of our class, at university, not at university but usually in school and colleges, is that the teacher is at the helm of the affairs. Teacher is producing, teacher is talking, and students are listening, though it is not liked by communicative language teaching practitioners. And even in our universities these days, alhamdulillah, all the classes, they are well equipped with televisions, with internet, okay, and all the facilities are provided to the teachers, so that they can use of multiple things in the classroom. They can use oral equipment, they can use visual things in the classroom, they can make use of the text, they can make use of the books, they can make use of the whiteboard. So teacher is well equipped these days, and our job is to create an interactional classroom, okay, taking the things from communicative language teaching, from direct method of teaching, from so many other methods which are related to language teaching. Teacher is using an eclectic approach to teaching our students, that how they can better understand the ideas which are produced in the text. As I have already talked about, the first job of the teacher is to know that what are the goals of the classroom. And then, according to those goals, the teacher prepares himself for the class. And then, of course, he goes to the classroom and he starts teaching. So, this approach, it has got certain advantages. If we use, okay, literature in the classroom for the purposes of teaching language, so we can manipulate literary texts, okay, for pedagogical goals. Since language is made up of words, phrases, clauses, sentences, structures, literature is made up of all these words, sentences, and structures. Literature is language in its applied form and prepares a basis for the study of language through various points of use. Of course, in literature, there are multiple points of use. So, when you are exploiting literature for teaching purposes, you focus on the words, you focus on the semantics of the words, you focus on the pragmatics of the sentences, you try to understand the context, you try to understand the phonological aspects of the text, you try to understand the pragmatic aspects of the text, you try to understand the discursive aspects of the text. You can talk about cohesion and coherence. You can talk about internal structure of the text. You can talk about external structure of the text. So you can talk about the genre. You can talk about the style. Certain genres, they have certain styles. Usually, for example, in academic writing, in composition classes, in our research classes, when the students are supposed to produce research in the form of a thesis or a research paper, we demand from them an academic style of writing. So, teacher is supposed to manipulate literature in the classroom and then teach the students, look how the authors, they are making use of language in the text. A style marker may be recognized intuitively or with the help of critics who have analyzed the text and identified various style markers used by the authors. Now, it is the job of the teacher to enlighten the students, to give them awareness about the kind of language which is manipulated by the authors. Some of the authors they make use of shorter sentences. Some of the authors they make use of longer sentences. Some of the authors they make use of shorter as well as longer sentences. And this is how we can come to know about their distinctive styles. So every piece of literary writing is different from the other. They have similarities, but they are never identical. So we need to understand, we need to make clear to our students that what are the peculiarities of the particular text that you are sharing, that you are dealing with the text that you are sharing with the students. If your focus today or any day is on collocations, so you can manipulate, you can use that literary text and give awareness to the students. Look how this author is making use of collocations. If your purpose is to teach them lexical items like synonymy, antonymy, hyponymy, meronymy, you can make certain exercises and you can exploit them in the classroom with the students. So it all depends on, what are the goals of the teacher. So teacher can talk about graphology and explain graphological elements in the text. Teacher can talk about phonology and can explain phonological aspects of the text, particularly in the poems. For example, alliteration, consonants, assonance, and meter. You can explain these things to them. Then if your focus is on the syntactic structures of the text, so teacher can exploit and give awareness about the use of syntactic structures which the authors have made use of. You can talk about grammar, formal aspects of grammar like subject verb agreement, like the use of adjectives, like the use of adverbs in the text. You can also go for semantics, pragmatics, and of course, discourse analysis or discursive aspects of the text. In this way, we can talk about, the kind of knowledge which is there in the text. But of course, all these texts they have got signification, they have got value. Not only the formal properties of language have been used by the authors, but also the macro level of issues the teacher can make use of in the classroom. And at the same time, along with the language, the ideas, the ideologies, the different kinds of social issues which have been highlighted by the author, the teacher can have discussion on them. And teacher can also talk about, look through this language, how the author is talking about these social issues, and look at the style of the author. We can also talk about plots, story within the story, okay, characters, and how the author has made use of all these things. All texts they have got world views. All texts they produce different kinds of world views, and we can have an interaction of the text, foreign text, with our culture. We can talk about our indigenous culture and we can relate our indigenous culture with the foreign culture which is discussed in the text. We can enlighten our students. Look how they are talking about this concept or this idea in their culture and what happens in our culture. For example, just look at the color white. Usually in Pakistan, when someone has died, people wear black or white color. In Christianity, we have seen in their culture through movies, through media, that when they are marrying, they put on white dress. So, signification, value of white color, the meaning of white color in their culture is different, and the kind of signification that we attach with white color is different. Same is the case when the child comes into this world. How we, you know, we pronounce, we say azan in his or her ear, and they have the concept of baptism in their culture. So, this is how cultural concepts, cultural ideas, cultural similarities and differences can be talked about, and along with the style of the author, along with the language of the author, we can talk about the bigger issues, the bigger concepts which are residing in the text. So, it is the job of the teacher to sensitize learners of English to the more challenging and dynamic use of words. We have already talked about how language makes use of deviation. We have already talked about how authors make use of foregrounding or parallelism. So all these ideas, they exist in the text, and this is how we can come to know the style of the author. The concept of defamiliarization, which is already discussed in one of my videos. Okay, so this is how we can talk about the style of the author. So, teaching language through literature presents language situated within a context, and we can talk about the advantages of using literature for language teaching classes. Since literature provides a medium for language development, it gives exposure to linguistic complexity, idiomatic and figurative use of language. It presents themes such as love, hate, jealousy, revenge, war, and all these things you may find in the Shakespearean texts, in the so many other authors, okay, that they have talked about. So I have talked about today that how authors they make use of language in literary texts, and what is the role of the teacher, how he can exploit literature in English language teaching classrooms, and how not only the style of the author but also the language which is used by the authors we can explain to our students. We can talk about grammar, we can talk about phonology, we can talk about semantics, we can talk about pragmatics, and we can talk about discourse level of the text, okay, which is exploited by the author. Thank you very much.